Oh, the calendar is turned to September, and you guys, you know what that means. It is regular season content here inside the collective, the 2nd of September and week 1 of this 25-26 NFL season. I'm Bobby Trossett, pleased to be joined by my co-host, Jeff Zaribek, longtime writer for The Athletic, and prior to that, the Baltimore Sun. Road graders finest in the YouTube film study space, Cole Jackson. Guys, this is what, episode number 5 or 6, one of the two. We've been firing on all cylinders for a month. We are monetized as of a week or two ago. Super chats will now incorporate into this program, and we got a lot of football content to get into as well, including a week 1 preview of this coming Sunday night in Buffalo. It's a rematch of the divisional round. We're going to get into Bills-Ravens in depth. We're going to talk about certain position groups that we're skeptical about going into 2025. Isaiah Likely's tweet, did it suggest something within the last hour or two or nothing? Maybe just some gamemanship involved there. Jeff will also give us his insider perspective on what's going on player health-wise entering this week 1 showdown. And, man, we got a lot to get to in between all of that and more. Tonight is brought to you by our newest and first sponsor. It's our friends at Sleeper. More on them in just a bit. But, gentlemen, how you guys doing, Cole?
Doing good, man. I'm ready to go. This is like, it's funny. My oldest has her first day of school tomorrow. And so I kind of feel like it's just a week of high anxiety and just kind of ready to go back into the swing of things with fall. The weather's starting to cool down a bit. We have football, kids back in school. I'm just ready to go.
Jeff, are you coaching soccer, did I hear in the pre-show meeting?
No, I know they don't need me around to coach. But I took my son to his first soccer practice today. So that kept me busy. That got the juices flowing a little bit before our show. Got me in a little bit of a feisty mood. So we're all good.
Perfect. We usually have to get that out of you. But
got to keep Jeff out of the comments down below.
Yeah. For real. Well, it's great to have everybody back with us for tonight's collective. And what better way to kick this thing off than sharing the aforementioned Isaiah Likely tweet with, guys, just a simple clock, an old school clock emoji, ... afterwards. This was earlier tonight, just after 6 o'clock. Charlie Kohler earlier today, kind of feeling like it's week 1, right? He said, woke up and hit some smelling salts just to feel something. Hashtag football season. And so in one breath, guys, Charlie's in chronological order. Charlie's tweet comes out first, gets everybody juiced up in the Twitter space, as you'd expect. Not that you need any kind of hype going into week 1 in this rematch. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Charlie knows that Isaiah Likely's probably not going to play in this game, being that he's not all that far removed from the aftermath of the foot fracture and the procedure that followed. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, Charlie's just getting ready for what's going to be a big night, big opportunity for him in front of a primetime audience. Then, Jeff, Isaiah comes in with a little bit of a cryptic tweet here. You can take it in a bunch of different directions. Which direction you decided to take it in?
I think he's ready. He's getting ready, and he's getting impatient, and he wants to. It's almost time for him to return to practice. I would take it as that. But still, I mean, if we're talking about Sunday, I would still be very surprised if we saw him. I mean, he had the surgery on August 1st. We're a little over a month out. And, so 3 practices in a month, and that's if he's on the field tomorrow, which I'm not necessarily banking on. That's probably not enough to be ready to play in a high stakes football game on Sunday. However, crazy things have happened. I mean, we've seen, usually you see the progression. You start seeing the guy around a lot more. He's not in the training room the whole time. He's out at practice. And since about mid last week, we started to see Isaiah Likely out at practice. The first time we saw him, he looked like he had a pretty pronounced limp. And each time we've seen him since, he's looked a little more comfortable. He was horsing around the other day with guys. I think he's getting ready to go. He's probably getting closer. But I think Sunday could be a big Charlie Kohler day. I'm really not banking on Isaiah Likely playing in the game, although we'll see tomorrow. Wednesday's always the big practice day. If he's not on the field Wednesday, no shot. But if he's on the field Wednesday, I would say outside shot.
Cole, Pat Ricard obviously hasn't practiced in a bit. Jeff, I think you had him noted at August 14th was the last time that he saw a practice appearance. And obviously, John Harbaugh has mentioned, even though tight-lipped John Harbaugh is back on the scene here getting ready for week one, he has mentioned that Pat is dealing with what he was referring to as a soft tissue setback. So we'll get Jeff's update on Pat in just a second, though, Cole. But if he can't go 42, well, I'm old enough to remember what 42 did to this Buffalo defense a year ago and what was a demolition. Really ran him out of Baltimore, really starting from the first play with Derrick Henry, 87 yards to the house. What are you expecting personnel-wise if 42 can't go coming up on Sunday?
I think it's going to really complicate things. I think they'll lean more into their 12 personnel with Charlie Kolar taking on that blocking tight end role, but I think they want that opportunity to be able to go into 22, 21. And, I almost hate when they count him as a running back because he's usually almost always lined up as a fullback nowadays. Fullback snaps have really declined, but if you go back to the film, I just did it on my channel this morning, actually. I looked at the run game last year, in Buffalo. And he played a lot. They played out of the I formation quite a bit. Probably a lot of that being that it was a snow game, wet ball, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that factors into it. But they lean heavily on him, especially when this offensive line is going to need to gel a little bit. So using Pat in pass protection is definitely going to play a role. But also just in the run game, being able to move bodies, that crunch concept that Derek took to the house for, was it 87 yards? He sprung that. Him and Andrews were two of the key blocks. Roger made a big block too. So, I mean, not having Patrick Ricard is such... It'll hurt, especially with Likely not there, because those guys do a lot more. Well, I think Ricard gets his flowers. I shouldn't say that, but Likely does a lot in the run game, especially on option concepts when they use him as a jet motion, and then he's a lead blocker for Lamar. So I think those two not being out there with what worked so well against Buffalo, if you go back to it, it was really, the power run game. And it was the option run game. Lamar Jackson scored on a touchdown in that early in the week 4 matchup, not in they actually didn't run one option concept in the playoffs somehow. But we'll have to see what happens here. But Ricard is a big loss, like a very underrated loss, and it might be time to elevate our guy Lucas Scott if he can't play. Like, I think. I don't know what you think, Jeff, but would that be in the cards? Because I think, having that fullback tight end hybrid is really important to this Todd Monken offense.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the likely move if they miss if Likely and Ricard aren't able to play. You need somebody. You need somebody who can do that. Block, and the other tight end, the other option is Mitchell Payton. Maybe he gets a look, but I would think if Likely and Ricard are both out, that Lucas Scott would probably be the front runner. That would be a heck of a way to make your debut for a guy who was a tackle at Army. But cool story nonetheless. And, I know he was a priority for them. There were a couple teams that expressed interest and potentially putting a waiver claim on him and never did. So they were glad to get him back. And, it wouldn't surprise me if he factors in the cards there if no Ricard. But guys, I think if out of the three, the three guys who weren't practicing most recently, Jair Alexander, Patrick Ricard, and Isaiah Likely, I think Pat Ricard probably has the best chance to play. I think, judging by when he went down, apparently the soft tissue issue, which, sounds like it may have been a type calf strain, but I'm not ruling him out yet. The other two, I kind of would be surprised at this point if they play. Well, Alexander maybe, but Likely would be a surprise. But I think out of the three, Ricard probably has the best shot at this point.
So August 9th, right? August 9th is Jair Alexander's final practice. You have seen him off to the side, though. I think you've mentioned in back-to-back weeks now.
I haven't seen him in a while. Last week we saw him running off to the side, and obviously people were sort of, I guess he was at Louisville this past weekend and taking a game, and people were sort of analyzing his gait, when he was on the field doing some different things. But again, I mean, you got Jair Alexander for the long haul, I don't know about that one. I think we know. Yeah, there we go. I think we know his knee injury is going to be an issue all year. You're going to have to You're going to have to manage it. Excuse me. I'm just not sure you force the issue in week 1 with him when you have other guys ready to play.
I tend to agree with kind of that with Likely as well. Obviously
Yeah.
I want him back, especially in September where we have these 3 very large matchups against Detroit, Kansas City, and Buffalo. But it's hard for this team to not prioritize being more ready in January than it is in September. That being said, obviously you need to be successful before January to get to January. But nonetheless, I think the Ravens have shown that ability to be able to win regular season football games. Look, he's moving around pretty good. I don't know, Jay-Z. I'm gonna have to get I'll get the AI analysis tool on this, and we'll get back to you with a full medical report.
Look at this.
I'm not quite sure what he's. I'm not sure quite what he's doing though. It looks like a little chest compressions, or I don't know. But
let's just say the upper body is looking mint.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, and if he's out there, he'll be ready to play. That guy lives for this. So, Wednesday's always the big day, guys. If any of those 3 guys are not practicing Wednesday, John Harbaugh may not, but you might as well rule them out, especially with how many practices they've already missed. Wednesday being back gives those guys a shot. But again, God, Likely had surgery a month ago. I'm with you, Cole, and I also, I kind of see a little bit of a silver lining with Likely being out that I'll get to a little bit later, but it gives you an opportunity to get other players involved in the passing game and establish other players that you're going to want to establish this year. But we could talk more about that later. But, look, it would be great if they had no injury concerns heading into week 1, but very few teams can say that. And I think overall the health of the roster is pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, we all know it's a war of attrition, and based on, even though it's a small sample size, based on what Isaiah has put on tape in the month of January, he's proven he is a big game player, and another big game player last week since the last time we were on this show live he ain't going anywhere. He's been locked down in Baltimore. That is Kyle Hamilton, all-pro safety. He and the Ravens reached agreement on a 4-year, $100.4 million contract extension. It's the largest for a safety in NFL history. It includes $82 million guaranteed, and that surpasses the previous record of $45 million for a safety. Jeff and Schefter and everybody else all over this on the national level. And here it is. Here's the list of highest paid safeties that Kyle now finds himself atop. Names like Kirby Joseph, Antoine Winfield, Derwin James, Budda Baker, so on and so forth. Cole, you already knew that this was a priority for the team. Eric DaCosta didn't just hint at it. He made it very clear, and he got this done so that, in Kyle's words, he can just focus on football from this point forward.
Yeah, and that's really what you want to see them do, right? Like, knock these out before the season starts. It also creates a little bit of excitement, a little bit of hype, which I think is always really important. I think, negotiating with Lamar Jackson is going to become the big priority next offseason. But just based on how we've seen it go with Lamar and his contract negotiations, he just seems to negotiate on his own terms. Like so I kind of expected that to go down to the wire. So I'm glad they got it done with Kyle. It just kind of locks him one of those pivotal guys. I mean, if you look at the defensive depth chart and you have to point to that one guy that's going to be the centerpiece for the next little while, I think everybody is picking Kyle Hamilton. So I'm just glad it's locked in. It's crazy to look at how much higher it's coming at than some of these other guys, but he's well worth it. I'm excited that he's back. And, the big thing for Kyle Hamilton is I think the Ravens really need to find a way, and that our Darius Washington injury really stings when doing it, but getting him, out of the split safety look a little bit, getting him down into the box a bit more like we saw in 2023. If you think about it, 2023 versus 2024, less plays made, which wasn't any fault of his. He was kind of taking on that split safety role, keeping the ball in front of him, really shoring up the pass defense, which was such a problem in the first 10 weeks. So there's a ton of value there. I'm not trying to discount him, but you didn't see him moving all over the field quite like you did in 2023. And that's really where, when he gets to that level where he's going to be in the defensive player of the year conversation, it's going to be because he's all over the field, making plays all over the field. So I just hope to see them be able to get to that look again. We'll see what they're able to do with, someone like Ruben Lowry maybe taking on some of those snaps. That might be a little early for an undrafted rookie that early in the preseason, but it is something that I'm looking for, just being able to play even single high with Starks and then being able to bring him back down into the box. I think it's a very exciting possibility that will just give Zach Orr another kind of tool in his tool belt for this season.
Yeah. This guy checks every box on or off the field, just every one of them, honestly. And even though this is an exorbitant amount of money and this will make things tighter for other guys, this is one of these checks that you're going to have to write out. And when you get it done, you do it happily because you trust the player. You know what a star he is. You know that a contract's not going to change him. You know what he means in the community. You know what he means in the locker room. As I said, God, they stepped in that he fell the 14th in the draft. And, you need to make sure that, you continue in that. It had to be one of the easiest decisions that they were going to make this offseason. And, this is his defense now. And I say that with all due respect to Roquan Smith. But, given, Kyle's a homegrown guy and, this contract now and where he is age-wise, this is Kyle Hamilton's defense. So, and this contract pretty much assures that. I think I liked it for Kyle Hamilton's side too, guys, because, this guy plays such a physical style. He had to go to the blue tent 4 or 5 times last year during games. So, you want to get these deals done when you can for both player and team. And when you're talking about the kind of money they were talking about, it's no secret why this went pretty quick and they were able to knock this out in 2 or 3 weeks.
Kyle doesn't turn 25 till March. He's going to have another bite at the apple, maybe with Baltimore, and be a lifetime Raven.
He's the kind of guy that everybody, he got engaged in France this offseason too. So he's having quite a good year. He's got pretty much everything. He's brilliant. He's in the Mensa Society or whatever it's called. I don't even know the name because, why would I know that kind of thing? But he's a good-looking guy. He reads all the time. He's extremely intelligent. He's a great communicator. I mean, it must be nice. I'm telling you guys, this guy checks every box. You got to just admire it.
And I can't even afford a sweater from Fanatics right now. So, I mean, good on Kyle.
Everybody set the over-under on that first rant from you.
Maybe we should
plus minutes in.
Maybe we should get some reads in to pad Cole's pocket a little so we don't have to listen to this.
That is a fantastic segue, and we will in just a moment. I want one little piece here, Cole. You referred to the 2023 alignment for Kyle, which was gnarly, but you really know it's gnarly when you think that these alignment numbers and snap counts are like pedestrian compared to 2023. I have them right now in front of me. From 2024, he logged 355 at free safety, 292 at slot corner, 246 at linebacker, 124 at strong safety, 78 up front, defensive line wise, and 18 as a corner. So, to hear you say that it was almost a downgrade in terms of the diversification, and we know why because of Marcus's benching. But those numbers still lead you to believe wow, this dude's still doing it all. And yet what does that speak to in 2023? It's insane.
Yeah, absurd. And it's just, let's get back to, I want to see him coming out. I want to see him sacking Josh Allen. That's really what I want to see early in that. That's something that I think it was such a big piece of Mike McDonald's defense that we lost a little bit of last year. And we just need those playmakers on this defense in these big games.
I think Kyle Hamilton's going to win a Defensive Player of the Year before his career's over.
Agreed.
If he stays healthy, it's a pass rusher's award normally. But, Surtain won last year as a cornerback on Denver. If, he's going to need to put up stats, he's going to need to have some interception sacks. mixed in a couple defensive touchdowns, but he's that good of a player. He can do that much, and maybe you got to kind of catch lightning bottle with none of these pass rushers having, 18 sack type years, but it's doable. I really do think he's going to win that award before all's said and done.
Zach Orr attempted to speak that exact vision into existence, right? Around this time last year, going into 2024. Now Kyle Hamilton's locked down in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. That is part one of tonight's show. Lots of Bills-Ravens analysis and a preview coming up in just a bit. But first, this episode is brought to you by our first ever sponsor here inside the collective. That is Sleeper, the most engaging fantasy app that's out there. And you guys know how this drill goes, right? In the YouTube space, the way we go is typically the way our sponsors go, or vice versa. So if you can support us and support our sponsors, it goes a long way to channel growth, sustainability, and everything else in between. So without further ado, a message from Sleeper. We'll talk to you on the other side. We'll be right back.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
And as you see on the screen, guys, use promo code that is HMA. That'll get you up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. You can see Sleeper's terms of use for more details. They're currently operational in over 25 states. You can check out Sleeper today. Just know that it's a real money product. Connects friends over picks, and you can choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than predicted stats. And on Sleeper, you can get up to 1,000 payouts. So share with your friends, and you guys can all get rewarded together. Special thanks to Sleeper for sponsoring this episode. From this point forward this season, sponsor number 1, and a great segue from our partner there, Jeff. Guys, shall we talk about
I'm learning this YouTube stuff, guys. I told you, just got to stick with me. I'll become an expert in this space before long.
I love it. And with that in mind, another thing that I should mention is we got to get the likes up. If you like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, consider leaving a super chat. It helps this channel go. It helps us continue to do this on a weekly basis like we started at the, I guess at the beginning of August. So with that, thank you guys for being here. And without further ado, let's get into some Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson chatter, because obviously while they won't play each other directly, something that Lamar always makes sure to remind everybody, this is the headliner. This is the matchup. This is last year's MVP showdown, of course. Lamar got the last laugh in the early part of the regular season, and then Josh and the Bills got the last laugh when it mattered the most in January. It was a self-inflicted wound type of game for the Ravens. We all know that. A turnover-worthy first half, turnover-prone first half, and obviously the one that is really cemented into everybody's minds there at the end with Mark Andrews on the goal line. But I guess from 1,000 feet up, Cole, when you take a look at this matchup, and now that the NFL top 100 players list has been released, and for the second consecutive season, Lamar finds himself as the top-ranked quarterback. He's the second-ranked overall player, according to the players, to Saquon Barkley. Last year's was Tyreek Hill. So, in other words, Lamar, by his peers' estimation, is the top quarterback for 2 years running. Do you give a shit about lists?
I don't, but what I will say is what I find so interesting. So that survey came out today of the top 3 quarterbacks NFL GMs or executives would take, and Lamar was like 7th on the list. And I think what amazes me is the discrepancy that we continue to see between executives and the media and the players. And we've seen this, right? We saw for the first time in like 20 years where Lamar Jackson last year was the first team All-Pro, AP All-Pro, which has always been the MVP on that. And Josh Allen was the second team. And I think the last time that happened was like in the 90s or something crazy. And then obviously we see the MVP go to Josh Allen. So it's been so interesting to watch this and the narratives between these two guys. If I had told you that Josh Allen would only throw for 127 yards in that playoff game, do you think you'd be telling me that the Baltimore Ravens would win? Because I would certainly think so, because Josh Allen in that game was 16 for 22 for 127 yards. He only ran for 20 yards on 10 carries. Yes, 2 of them were tush-push touchdowns, but it was just amazing to me to go back and look at the box score. And, then you look at Lamar, he goes 18 20 for 25, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, obviously an interception and the fumble. But just to see, the narratives that surround these two players. And I think that's what I get so sick of. It's just the narratives has been going on since 2018. It's exhausting, and it's exhausting to swim up, that current every single year. But it's just like Lamar just continues to outperform. And, I think he's going to do it again on Sunday. And I think he'll continue to do it again this season. It's one of those things where, I didn't get too into the MVP conversations on Twitter last year because I'm just kind of wasting my energy at that point. But I think it was pretty clear Lamar Jackson was the best player in the National Football League last year and should have been the most valuable player. But, and then you see the players kind of agree, at least with ranking Lamar over Josh Allen. So I just find it interesting to watch the narratives around the two, especially when you look at kind of what Josh Allen did in that playoff game. And yet, the narrative's only around Lamar in the playoffs. Josh Allen and the Bills haven't gone anywhere either. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You want to know when I stopped paying attention to this list? When I was in the Ravens locker room and I saw players filling it out and putting kickers on the list and putting long snappers on the list and not taking it as seriously at all. So that right there told me that I have no interest in paying attention to this list. But that's kind of beside the point. Like I will say about the MVP vote, guys, and I guess it's a question of who's most deserving. I think Josh Allen had an MVP year, so I'm not going to gripe too much about that. But I think the basis for the vote of a lot of people was, look, Allen had to do more with less, and Allen elevated his team more than Lamar did. And I would have voted for Lamar, to be clear, but I'm just saying that seemed to be when we heard from voters like that he did more with less. Yet I think the playoff game kind of defied that, right? He didn't have to do that much in that game. He played a winning football game. Nothing wrong with how Josh Allen played. He played well. But, they have the best offensive line in the AFC probably. And they have enough weapons between Shakir and the tight ends. And James Cook is probably a top 5 running back. So he didn't really have to do a ton. And yet they were beaten in that game because of self-inflicted mistakes and because they lost the line of scrimmage. And both continue to happen in playoff games. So, I think the interesting thing is Lamar and Allen have a lot of respect for each other. And maybe Ravens fans probably disagree, but I love watching Josh Allen play football. They're 2 great players, and they're going to be rivals. And, I think if you had to say who's under more pressure, let's forget week 1. I think Lamar probably is, only because Josh Allen has played a little better in the postseason, right? He's kind of had some better moments in the postseason than Lamar has. And I think this is all about which one of these guys can get to and win a Super Bowl. And in that conversation, I think you look at Allen's playoff numbers, and he's been better than Lamar has in the playoffs. So maybe Lamar is under a little more pressure, but I think both these guys are good teammates, and they approach it the right way. And they know it's not about them as the quarterbacks, and they kind of have a mutual respect for each other. So it's really only the fans who are kind of fighting over their guy, which makes this fun.
We're going to dig into some position groups and matchups in just a second here, but I think before we kind of get into the specific game itself for week 1, speaking very generally, entire team wide going into the full body of work season, Cole, is there a position group that you would say you're skeptical about? Maybe you have your doubts when it comes to it just not being fortified in your mind, or what you've had seared into your brain from the past in this position? The position group that you feel the most concerned about going into 2025 is what?
Yeah, I think when you look at the roster top to bottom, I kind of said this in the preseason. You feel pretty good. Like this is top to bottom one of the most complete rosters I can remember the Ravens having. But if there is one spot that I am the most concerned with, it's the guard play. And I kind of, like I mentioned, I went back and watched that game, and Jay-Z mentioned it. Like they did lose the line of scrimmage, and their defensive tackles were just one gapping, and Falele getting up out of his stance. McCary really struggled in that game. Obviously, now we have Andrew Voorhees that is going to look to establish that left guard spot. So until they can prove on a consistent basis, and that's the story with Daniel Falele. It's, can he consistently turn in good performances week to week, and when are those inconsistencies going to show, and our team's going to be able to take advantage of them? Because in the run game, the Bills definitely took advantage of his lack of foot speed, especially on zone concepts. So that is definitely what I am the most concerned about with this team. I'll also add in, and this one's going to be weird because I'm probably one of his biggest hype guys, but year 2 can be tough for some players, and I wonder if we see Roger Rosengarten struggle a bit out the gates. Like I think a lot of people's expectations are very high for him because of how he finished the year, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I wonder if we might see a couple bumps early in 2025 that make people start to kind of get concerned. So that's something I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on. And that right side of the line is just, with the concerns around Falele, I think it's just going to be interesting to watch how it all unfolds. I think I'll be really looking to Todd Monken to making sure that, putting this team in a position to succeed. I'd really like to see them be able to run the ball effectively early in this game. I just think it takes pressure off of everything when you can really assert dominance on the offensive line. And that's the thing about offensive linemen. They want to move forward. Nobody wants to move backwards, because pass protection, you're basically playing defense. So there's a lot of tone setting that could be included in this matchup, not just for a matchup one-on-one with the Bills, but for the season in general. Get them out there, get them moving downfield, and be able to assert your dominance. I think there's a ton of value in that. So that's what I'd really like to see. And I'm excited for, just back to Roger, I'm excited for year 2 with his run blocking, because we saw that lack of functional strength last year. And I'm really interested to see kind of a multi-game sample of him after being in an NFL weight room, because once you get into these NFL weight programs, it can make a big difference on these guys. So excited to see that, but it's obviously going to be the offensive line for me, particularly the guards.
Yeah, I think for me, it's first of all, I think Cole's on it. I think their biggest concern is offensive line depth, and it starts with those 2 guards. And it'll be a little while before we see Emory Jones and he becomes an option, and they're really thin at tackle. But where I'm going with that one, guys, is kind of off the beaten path a little bit. It's not because I'm concerned about the actual position group, but I'm kind of going with the pass catchers, and just, the need for these guys to be unselfish and to understand that, there will be some weeks where they're probably not going to be heavily involved. I mean, they're all saying the right things. I mean, the day before training camp, Mark Andrews was talking about how, everyone's going to have to be unselfish, and DeAndre Hopkins brought it up. But you look at all these things, and Hopkins has never been a guy shy to call out a quarterback if he's not getting the ball. Flowers and Bateman are coming off career years. They're not going to want to take a back seat. Derrick Henry ain't going to accept fewer carries, let me tell you that. And then you got the tight ends all in a contract year. Now, Charlie Kohler's not going to, make a ripple, but you look at Likely and Andrews, and they're going to want to be heavily involved. And it's just how they, and again, Lamar is great at this, but it's just how they sort of get these guys involved week to week, and these guys not overreacting to maybe a game or two where they're just not getting the targets they want. I think unselfishness is going to be huge on this offense this year, because for each different reasons, whether it's wanting to build off a career year, whether it's contract year, whether it's run, in Henry's case, for the record books, there's ample reasons why these guys aren't going to be too happy if their roles reduced a little bit. But when you have good players, somebody's going to get limited in a lot of ways. You're just not enough offensive plays to get everyone involved like they deserve to be involved. And these guys need to really buy in this year. And when you're winning, that stuff kind of takes care of themselves, unless your name's Deontay Johnson. But in the case of, like, if there's a rough patch, and there usually is, they need to make sure that, all these guys are on the same page. And I think, that's one thing Bateman's done a terrific job of. I mean, he knows he plays wide receiver for the Ravens, and he's not going to get a ton of targets. But, there's other guys that are going to kind of need to accept some games that they're not going to be a big part of the offense. And that can be tough for accomplished veterans like the Ravens have on that group.
And we've kind of heard the Ravens coaches talk about this a little bit in the past, with Hollywood Brown. I always found it so interesting because I think he was top 10 2 years in a row in targets, and yet still just had those career aspirations in terms of a contract, because he wasn't necessarily putting out, what he thought he could produce in terms of like raw stats. And that's what get guys paid, right? So that was a guy that wasn't really fully bought into the message that you were kind of selling, right? Like, I think that's kind of a prime example. And, I'll just say before we kind of move on, what a good problem to have for once, And that's the thing, right? And I think seeing someone, the thing that excited me the most about DeAndre Hopkins signing here was how quickly he did it. This wasn't a guy that was sitting around into the summer because no one was. DeAndre Hopkins wanted to be here. You kind of mentioned it with Bateman. I think he knows the context. He knows the environment he's moving into, where it's not going to be, 10, 12 targets like he's used to. I think he wanted to play with Lamar Jackson. He wanted to, be on a winner, and that you nailed it. Winning cures all.
It's interesting. Jeff's point just makes you think about, for once, along these lines of pass catchers, offensive weapons around Lamar, as it was in years past. It's not about shortage. It's almost about a necessity that is temperament for these guys.
Yeah.
Not a shortage for once,
yeah,
but the need for temperament. And that's actually what a refreshing piece of reality.
And that's why so much and Lamar is unanimously respected, but he also knows what's going on. And I mean, Lamar Jackson was in the locker room pretty much after every game, calming down Deontay Johnson in those first early games. And, I think we saw a couple times, Lamar doesn't do it very often, but in that road Steelers game, they clearly tried to force the ball to Deontay Johnson early in that game, and other wide receivers were open for big plays, and Lamar sort of wanted to get Deontay Johnson involved, and it came in the right place. But that's not good. This offense, it's not based on doing that. And the second they go into it saying, oh, we got to get this guy some touches because he's getting pissed off, then that takes away from the offense as a whole. So again, this group has said all the right things. I think Todd Monken does a very good job of this. I think Lamar is tremendous with how he does it, but it's worth watching. I mean, again, and it is, as Cole said, it's a good problem to have.
Begs the question, since Deontay wasn't able to make the Cleveland 53-man roster, what does his future look like in the NFL? I keep saying that after every cut, after every release, after every antic, and yet who's going to take a chance out of it? Yeah. So it just shows you what life in the NFL can be like for these teams, and sometimes when it comes to desperation. Hey, before we get to a couple super chats, I'll just add in, for me, it was between weak side linebacker and special teams. And I think the reason why I'm going to go with special teams is because they have more bodies that could potentially sub in should Trenton Simpson struggle again last year. Do they have a favorite after Trenton Simpson? I mean, if Cole's got his at gunpoint, I think he's going Jay Higgins till the cows come home. Right? I mean, you're going to go with Jay Higgins, but
my Roy Higgins jersey just arrived.
Oh, I guess that wasn't too expensive for you.
No, that one I got a PhD.
So we could get it. We've talked about the depth at that position. many a time leading up to the 53-man roster, we know who made this team and it would have an opportunity to fill in should Trenton come out scuffling. But the reason why I'm going to go special teams, I think, is while Tyler has looked really solid, really since, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, when did he struggle? Was it OTAs at this point was his struggles?
Who were we talking about, Tyler?
Tyler Loop?
Oh, yeah. It was a mandatory minicamp a little bit, but yeah, he's ever since training camp started, he's been pretty clean.
Yeah. And so while that I acknowledge that, and I think I tip my cap to Randy Brown, who obviously deserves a ton of praise for what he does at an all world level when it comes to evaluation and the scouting process that took place. And really, I don't think no stone went unturned this offseason based on his interview recently with you guys in the beat reporter community. But until, it's interesting, that pressure management side of things can be such a unique thing. How do you could feel so great about his legs, so great about how he handled himself at Arizona, so great about his off-field presence. He seems, I think he's early marriage, right, Jeff? Like he's
engaged. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's got that wise beyond his years type of mentality. But until it's week one, until the lights are bright and everybody's watching on Sunday night, I just don't know if I can truly cross that, check that box. So it'd be special teams for me. And we haven't even talked about some of the struggles in the kick units and losing two of your aces in Chris Board and Malik Harrison that are going to have to be replaced.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're still looking there. I think, I'll be interested to see if they use their practice squad elevations and someone to help on special teams. But yeah, I think that's an area they're always on the lookout for. Braid's another guy. I mean, he played over 40% of his special team snaps last year. So you lost 4 or 5, and Christian Welch, add him in. You lost 4 or 5 core guys, and you're going to have to depend on young players to play special teams. And when you have young players playing special teams, that often leads to mistakes, and you got to work through that.
No doubt. Offense and defensive matchups, specifically targeting this week one Ravens-Bills game coming up in just a second. But let's rip through a couple super chats that have come in. We appreciate you guys. A brand new feature that you guys unlocked for us, which we appreciate. Eric Hill gets us started, and he says, good evening, everyone. Voltron in the building. Hashtag 6K for LJ. Hashtag 20. Count these hashtags. Hashtag stop the 22 per day. Eric's a subscriber of ours. He's referring to suicides per day, I believe, within, I don't know, is it within the firefighter department, Eric, or within the firefighter community? Hashtag Cougar Hunter. That is aimed at me. We could talk about that another time. Hashtag Suicide Awareness Month. Hashtag Ravens Collective. Appreciate you, Eric. Remind me, too, what that 22 number is. I need to remind everybody since it's important. Can't wait for the post-show meeting when you guys press me up against the wall and get an answer to that hashtag. And Cole, why don't you take this one?
Cougar Hunter.
Take this one from Clinton before I have to keep talking. Take this one, Cole, will you?
Personal prediction, 41-21 Ravens get a lead early from Allen throwing picks, particularly to Kyle Hamilton, and Lamar flirts with a Jackson 5. Let's go.
Clinton Ganaway calling his shots, and I was calling my shots on the Florida dating apps not long after getting here. And that was an inside joke on the vault earlier this week. With that, let's swing it over to you, Jeff, in terms of the one key or matchup or anything within those lines going into week one from a Baltimore offensive perspective.
We're going from dating apps to me. That doesn't seem like a great segue. But yeah, one thing I want to watch is the defensive front of the Ravens. And I mean, not a lot was said about it, and after the playoff game, because most people were kind of fixated on the Andrews fumble and drop and the 3 turnovers. But, this was the best rushing defense in the league statistically, and they allowed almost 150-yard rushing and 3 rushing scores. And I don't want to say they were gouged, because I think they allowed 4.1 yards per carry in that game. But they clearly had a recipe that we're going to hammer them up front and we're going to win the game. And they sort of set the tone in that game on the ground. And that should stick in the craw of all that interior defensive line. Yeah, no Mike Pierce, but that group is by and large all back together. They need to control the running game. These pass offenses, Josh Allen didn't play in the preseason. Lamar Jackson didn't play. And in fact, I believe this is the first preseason Allen did not play in a game. So you have to expect some rust with passing. So, this is a keep it simple game. We're going to run the ball. You didn't stop us in January. You stop us now. So the Ravens interior defensive line needs to play a lot better. They were controlled in that game. We're not disruptive enough, gave up too much traction. I think this is a big answer the bell game for that group.
Again, if you go look at the box score, it's honestly shocking to look at. And it was Ty Johnson goes 5 for 31. That's a 6.2 average. Ray Davis goes 4 for 29. That's a 7.2 average. They ran the ball 36 times. They threw the ball 22. Some of those obviously scrambles, which would have been called pass plays. But the lack of balance to the run game. And then the Ravens, a little bit more 50-50, 25 pass attempts. And then I think it was about 30 rushing attempts. And that really was the difference in that game. It was Buffalo continued to hammer the rock. And if you go back to the Kansas City game, the AFC Championship, I remember friend of the program, Spencer Schultz, making this point. Isaiah Pacheco in that game did not have a high average. I think it was like in 3.6, but Kansas City stuck to their run game and it kept the defense honest. And that's where I do start to question a little bit what Todd Monken's play calling when we get to the postseason, because I wouldn't say they're abandoning the run. That's not the right terminology, especially in this game. Kansas City game, maybe a different story. But I think they just kind of lose sight a little bit in terms of what their identity is. And that's not even so much play calling. It's how the players execute. And that's really what I focused on. If you go back to the quarter one runs, Derrick Henry, I think, ended the first quarter with like 12 yards, which is, what we saw last year, unheard of. And a lot of that was, again, those backside run blocks getting blown up, guys just losing the line of scrimmage. So I think it's losing your identity, not just in a play calling perspective, but a team that was, one of the best rushing teams in NFL history. And they start losing the line of scrimmage when the game matters the most, especially after dominating Pittsburgh the week before. So that's why, when we talk about that identity, I think the players have to own some of that as well.
As much as I want to comb through a bunch of different matchups that come to mind, does it all matter if ball security goes out? Does any of it matter if ball security goes out the window? And when you look, nobody needs a magnify glass to go back to the box score from last year and see that not only did the Ravens not create turnovers, but they didn't hold on to the football, and particularly that first half. And so you hold on to one of those. The way the Ravens match up with it's so unbalanced in favor of the Ravens in terms of these matchups that if you secure the football, then to me that's a recipe for a win against a Bills team at home. There's going to be a lot of emotions running high. The whole world's going to be watching on Sunday night. Ravens might be down a few guys, as we discussed earlier on in the show, which I was going to go the Ricard route, just in terms of what they might do if it is Lucas Scott, if it is more, multiple tight end sets and packages with Charlie kind of taking on some of the Ricard work there. But I'll ultimately go with the low-hanging fruit, and that is simply secure the football. On the other side of the ball, obviously, defensively speaking, that was one of their great early season performances, guys, last year in that Week 4 win, right? I mean, they got it done mostly because Buffalo really had only one way to stay in the game. Now, there were some chunk plays as they were trying to get back into the game, you might remember, in the secondary. But, Jeff, now fast forwarding to Week 1 of 2025, what's the one matchup that you're looking at that would determine a Ravens win?
You're talking about Ravens offense versus Bills defense, or the opposite?
The opposite, from a Ravens defensive perspective.
Yeah, I mean, they got to stop James Cook. I mean, I think, he's a top 5 back in the NFL. He's terrific. He could be good in the passing game. Again, I would imagine they'd love if the Ravens are in their big personnel or forced to stay in their base defense a lot, and you keep some of their DBs off the field, which can be dangerous. I think this is a game where, I think the selection of Malachi Starks could loom large, because I think you can move Kyle Hamilton close to the line of scrimmage where it could help out in that run game, and cause some havoc for Josh Allen, who was much too comfortable back in January. So, again, I think, that offensive line, if I'm not mistaken, with the Bills, returns everybody. I think they're all back. So that's a pretty similar group. They got the better of them. He was asked this week, Nnamdi Madubuike was asked about the offensive line, and he praised them, but he said it through gritted teeth. It was one of those things where he's about to say something, and then he gave kind of a boring vanilla quote and gave them their flowers, but you could tell he wanted to say something. But smart on him. They need to do the talking on the field on Sunday. And last thing, guys, if I'm not mistaken, they did not punt a single time in that game in Buffalo, right?
No.
Jordan Stout, other than holding, might as well stayed in the locker room. And to lose that playoff game, that's unbelievable when you don't punt a single time.
Pretty sure I saw Jordan Stout 3 rows up from eating nachos. I don't know.
You were probably seeing triple by then.
I might have had a couple pops in the parking lot. I didn't have to drive. I drove back to Canada that night. So I got back to my house at like 5 a.m. I walk in and my oldest is standing up after sleeping for 10 hours. we had quite the grind to get to school time, that's for sure. And then I passed out. Yeah, Jay-Z nailed it. I think the run defense and that Kyle Hamilton factor is so critical. And another big piece, and the key matchup that I want to see, and a guy that I think needs to take a big step, is Travis Jones. And Travis Jones has had all the flashes in the world. He has had Pro Bowl caliber nose tackle flashes. Like, that's what we've seen. We just need to see him stack plays, stack quarters. And I think, the Bills tackle duo is one of the best in the league with Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown really took that step last year, and Dawkins and Brown are up there. Kind of, I wouldn't say they're the best, but I would say the best probably still Maeda and Lane Johnson from the Eagles, but they're in that top 5 group of tackle duos. But I still find this interior offensive line, they're physical, but they're not overly athletic. They don't wow me. You got Osiris Torrance, who I wasn't overly high on in the draft. I don't think had a very good rookie season. I think he's living a little bit off of his draft hype. When I watched him, I wasn't wowed. Connor McGovern, guy that came over from Dallas, again, just doesn't wow me physically. Do appreciate, he's got the heart and the physicality, but just physically speaking. And then David Edwards, another guy that, again, just doesn't wow me. And I'd really like to see Travis Jones dominate that interior, just cause that havoc, because Jay-Z's right. If you can take James Cook out and make this a one-dimensional offense, you can do that to any quarterback, and it's an advantage. And so I think that really starts up front with Travis Jones causing that havoc, especially keeping Roquan clean, I think, is a key piece. I think that's going to make Trent Simpson's life a lot easier, as well as he kind of eases back into that starting will linebacker role. So that would be where I focus on the defensive side of the ball. But that Kyle Hamilton piece, I really think, is critical. I don't think the coaching staff felt comfortable using him that way last year. And I think Malachi Starks will put them in a position to be able to turn him into the 100-killer drone that was 2023 Kyle Hamilton.
Discipline too, guys. I mean, this is going to be a raucous environment. The Ravens are going to go in there wanting to settle, even though, it doesn't, you don't avenge a playoff loss in week 1, but they're going to want to go in there and send a message. They're going to be amped up. Most of these guys, I mean, look, they only played like 5. There's only like three or four starters that played the entire preseason. This team is going to be fired up. It's going to be a loud environment. They need to chill with the pre-snap penalties and not get baited into doing anything stupid. Just play a really smart road football game where you take care of the ball and you don't keep putting yourself behind the sticks because you're taking pre-snap penalties.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I should probably unmute my mic over here on my 3rd stream of the day. I didn't drink
COVID work. Microsoft Teams call right now. You're on mute.
I wish you were on mute when you talked with the cougar hunter. I'm not going to get. It's going to take me a while to get over that.
Oh, especially when we get into the details of it post show after we're live and end this stream. But God, what the frick was I even going to say to close things out? I mean, no, I think ultimately I just didn't have a whole lot more to add, because if you limit the run and you secure the football and you play, to Jeff's point, disciplined, this should be a double-digit margin, you would think, at the end, just given the talent gap. But then again, they are underdogs. We haven't mentioned that all show. They are 1.5-point underdogs. So that line, I'm sure, is going to move somewhere between, which is really, if it's at home, it's a wash, right? I mean, right? It's if it's in Baltimore, doesn't that essentially mean that if it's in Baltimore, the Ravens are 1-point favorites?
Yeah, I think the home field gives you 2 points
right?
on the spread.
It's
2 or 3. It's 2.5, something like that.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet the Ravens would be 2.5, 3-point favorites if this game was in Baltimore.
Sure. One more super chat on our way out of here from Manuel, who's calling his shot, and it's the Mexican currency. You got to love that. $20 in pesos. And Manuel writes, Tyler Loop might win it for us with a 65-yard game winner on Sunday Night Football. What a start to a career that would be.
That would be an easy game story to write, I'll tell you that.
I'll be running through the streets of Limoges, Ontario, waking everybody up. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, appreciate you, Manny, and appreciate everybody for participating tonight. We're short of an hour, and it's probably going to be the last time we're ever short for an hour, because it is officially regular season football. Let me refresh the screen over here just to see what we finished, at least in terms of the live stream here for likes. And the only reason why I'm being a stickler on that is it really is a proponent of channel growth here. So 175 likes on the night so far, with 346 watching. Needless to say, if we can get that number up, it would mean a lot, and it would help this channel's growth. So if you could, on the way out, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Maybe tell a friend, tell a group message, drop the link in there to a Facebook or iMessage, you name it. We're going to be live on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern for the foreseeable future. And again, we want to say thank you to our partner, our newest brand sponsor. That is the folks at Sleeper. It's the most engaging fantasy app out there. And if you use our code HMA, you can go get 100% match up to $100. And all that information can be found in the show notes below. Again, we will be live with you coming up on Tuesday next week. And guys, we're going to have football, actual football, post-football to sink our teeth into. So for Jeff Zaribek, Cole Jackson, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this one. September is here. We appreciate your support, and we will catch up with you on Tuesday. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. We'll catch up with you next week.